मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाचार्य निर्विशेष शून्यवादी प्रश्न विश्व कृपा सिंधु च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम राम। Very interesting subject. We will discuss on that. We third chapter and other chapters also. As we will discuss that third chapter is related to the society, right? You go externally, from external you come internal. When you go external, then you are connected to the larger realities of life. It begins with your own self, having an identity, having a facility for growth, right? Then there is parivar, then there is samaj, then there is kula, then there is rashtra, there is rajya, there is rashtra, right? Then there is world. So the karma yoga, right, it goes larger and larger with external world, keeping dharma in the center. On the personal, disconnecting organically, just like the mango becomes ripe and comes down from the tree. So sadhana makes you self-conscious about your own self to the supreme self. So it cuts all the connection, makes as possible, right? So this is they are not contradictory to each other. Again, nothing has to be seen as a contradiction. Everything has to be seen as an integration. Similarly, the Devi Gundappa in his Bhagavad Gita explains the adhikara vyavastha. How does it work? Like we studied that verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the Bhagavatam second canto also. Nadatte kassachit papam nadatte sukritim vibhu. Right, 5.15. Wherein Krishna is boldly saying that I will not take part, I do not take part in anybody's virtuous activity, neither evil activities. A living entity is bewildered because of the knowledge is covered by ignorance. That is the core idea of life. So he explains, when you see even the Sri Vaishnavas talk about the Lord who is residing in the spiritual world is not accessible to us only when the avatara comes, right? As much as he becomes accessible, that much he becomes practical. जितना एक्सेसिबिलिटी कम है उतना वो काव्य हो जाता है. It's all about accessibility. So Parabrahma in one sense is nirvikar. He is not moved by anything, right? And the glimpse of such ideas are there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also. Kaviraj Goswami explains the mindset of a sannyasi. A mindset of a sannyasi is that he doesn't have anyone whom he loves. He doesn't have anybody who he hates. न किसी को दान देते हैं, न किसी से दान लेते हैं. Right? He doesn't like to get involved in different kinds of emotions. वो कितने अच्छे, वो कितने बुरे. No, he transcends both of them. Right? So the Supreme Brahman is Nirvikar Nishkriya, apparently. Now, Nishkriya, not in a wrong sense. Nishkriya means he is not involved in the happenings of the world. Nadatte kasachit papa. And then Nishprapancha. Prapanch ke साथ कोई लेना देना नहीं. Then the second is Ishwar, right? Ishwar is basically like a CEO of a company or the owner of the company, a small company where he's actually involved. Ishwar, what does he do? He is Vyavharik because he takes avatar. He has to be Savikari. He comes in a form where he has a form, where he interacts, where he actually, does many things. So Ishwar, he gets involved in the happening of the creation when he comes with an avatar. Then the third is Prakriti. Nama, Rupa and Vyavaharamaya. Prakriti is, there is a Nama, Rupa, Vyavaharamaya. Like again, when we study Bhagavad Gita, 2.13 Krishna said, you are not this body. 2.14 Krishna said, Hey Kauntaya, Hey Bharata. Right? We underestimate the power of an identity. Imagine हमें प्रकृति ने रूप नहीं दिया होता, just the subtle body, mind, intelligence and ego. We only feel, right? There is no identity. ये शरीर क्लियर आइडेंटिफिकेशन देता है. आवाज सुनते बोल सकता है, प्रभु जी आप ये हो क्या? I remember when Radhanand Maharaj was in the hospital in London, suddenly Gopal Krishna Maharaj called, in somebody's number, and I was shocked and amused that I am not interacted so much with him. And he didn't call in my number, he called in somebody else's number. I picked up and immediately say, hey Govind, how is Maharaj? ये जो आवाज है, ये चेहरा है, ये फिंगरप्रिंट है, ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण होता है, राइट? इसलिए प्रकृति नाम रूप एंड व्यवहार में, बिकॉज देयर इज अ नेम, देयर इज रूप एंड देयरफॉर देयर इज व्यवहार, right? And therefore in any aspect of life, it doesn't matter how knowledgeable, educated, how spiritual you are, when you tend to marry, generally, whether it is west or east, एक social status, maybe in India it is Varna Kendrit, but एक social status amongst the highly responsible human beings, they will always do that. Whether it is Chanakya Pandit or Friedrich Nietzsche, he talked about blood. आपका खून कैसा है? So that is, प्रकृति को आप निर्विकार नहीं कर सकते हो, निराकार नहीं कर सकते हो, उसके आइडेंटिटी को नकार नहीं सकते हो. And we are part of the prakriti, and the identification cannot be denied. Certainly one should not be obsessed with identity, but identity is very utility friendly. Therefore it is Vyavaharamaya, right? And the third chapter explains Vyavahar mein Adhyatma dekho. And then Jiva, the fourth level is Jiva. Jiva has got millions of species, right? Innumerable species, innumerable psychologies. When we heard first time that there are 400,000 species of human, how is it possible? But as you grow more and more, then you start realizing how true that statement is, right? Because different layers of realities amongst the humans only. There is a theory also, and I think some documentaries were made that there are certainly similarities between all the species and human being, but there is a big difference between human being and other living entities. So there's a theory which says that humans are alien to the Earth planet. यहाँ के है ही नहीं, you know, amusing है, you know, right? Why they have said that, I have not studied that. So the first one of the four, परब्रह्म है, वो यहाँ के साथ उनका कुछ लेना देना नहीं है, परंतु जो ईश्वर है, अवतार धारण करने वाले, what does he do? He does protection of the dharmist, punishment of the adharmi, time to time reviving dharma, and fourth is artra paritrana, helping those distressed. यदा यदा ये धर्मस्य ग्लानि, मतलब कितना appropriate understanding है. यदा यदा ही धर्मस्य ग्लानि, ये जो चारों चीजें ये 2 वर्ष में आ जाता है, परित्राणाय साधूनाम, यदा यदा ही धर्मस्य. Therefore with this, ये जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग के कारण अभी हमने जो सीख लिया, then karma becomes very meaningful, right? There are different varieties of human existence. Prakriti interacts, we interact with the Prakriti according to our nature. कई चीजों के लिए, कई लोगों के लिए ये सही है, तो कई लोगों के लिए दूसरा कुछ सही है. So karma, there is a general karma and there is a specific karma. There is no confusion about general karma. Everybody has to pay tax, no problem. Everybody is a citizen of particular country, no problem. यहाँ समस्या नहीं है. Where does the problem arise? Problem arises that when there is a specific duty for an individual, वैयक्तिक जो निर्णय लेना पड़ता है, तब कंफ्यूजन, एब्स्ट्रैक्टनेस आ जाता है. कलेक्टिवली समस्या नहीं है. In regards to identifying the duty, implementing the collective may be difficult, right? जैसे जो नया एजुकेशन पॉलिसी आया है, नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी, makes sense, but implementation is so difficult. Individual में identification is difficult, implementation easy because you are alone. In the collective, identification is easy because it's very gross, but implementation is very difficult. So therefore, when we study this, that Parabrahma and Ishwar के बीच में, you know, that meeting point, वो क्या होता है? One of the core principle for understanding, again, see, when we study the Parabrahma or Jiva, there is certain underlying psychology or principle based upon how it operates. The Supreme Lord, Supreme Brahman, what does he do? He exhibits Viveka Purva Nishkriyata. Viveka Purva Nishkriyata, that means not getting involved in something which is not supposed to be. वो इन्वॉल्व नहीं करते, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. He is not desperate, you know, he is not sentimentally driven. The same quality when the living entity exhibits with proper understanding, right? Like in the 4th chapter of the 17th verse, what did Krishna say? Karmanyopi bodhavyam bodhavyam cha karmana. Karmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. Right? There here, here basically he also writes that समाज के लिए एक आपने दे दिया, ग्रोस वाला कर सकते हैं, राइट? व्यक्तिगत रूप में समझने के लिए क्या कर्म है, क्या अकर्म है. He is not talking about giving up. Giving up is easy, or doing something is easy. but doing the right thing. Like even Warren Buffett, I was in Singapore, our Sahadev Prabhu's grandson was telling, you know, he was saying that Warren Buffett has three portfolios: hard, easy, and not understood. Very interesting, on that level also, जो इतना precision है उसके investment में, but he has the courage to say this aspect is ununderstandable by me. This kind of humility we don't see, especially among those people who possess to be spiritual and knowledgeable, right? They have to give an answer. They will not say, I don't know about this, it is none of my business, because I have not studied it. So it says, rather than being precisely right, it is better to be wrong. And it says, it is rather than being perfectly right, it is better to be precisely wrong. That means कि perfection के बारे में अपने आप को इतना confidence मत दिखाओ. So therefore, individual karma is what creates the complexity, because it is layers of different realities for different people. Others cannot decide, others can only facilitate. So therefore, recognizing kim karmeti, मेरे लिए कर्म क्या है? Should I go to the Tirtha Yatra, or should I care for somebody sick in the house? देखो, युद्ध भूमि पर युद्ध करना है सब जानते थे, लेकिन अर्जुन के लिए स्पेसिफिकली एज एन इंडिविजुअल इट बिकेम वेरी वेरी ओवरवेलमिंग, बिकॉज युद्ध करने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं था, बहुत सारे युद्ध किया था, but now specifically he had to deal with Bhishma, Drona, Kripacharya and other dear relatives and family friends. करना चाहिए कि नहीं, ये सही है गलत है? Krishna, you have killed, no doubt, but आपने राक्षसों को मारा है, ये तो मेरे बहुत निकट के लोग हैं. So Arjuna is questioning in one sense that don't tell me to imitate you. You killed, but not your relatives, right? So therefore, he explains our karma involvement cannot be decided by others. अपने उत्तरदायित्व से दूर रहने के लिए, living entity to be away from the responsibility, putting somebody else responsible for steering our life is a risky proposition. Nobody can do that. Very clear. I can guide, Krishna told, but basically fighting is your responsibility. No? So therefore, they can facilitate, but you have to perform that sadhana to find out who you are. Sudama can't kill the birds as a Brahmana, but Krishna can do that as a Kshatriya. And therefore, one of the tragedy that our people, Bharatiya people, rather than maintaining their complexity, they try to make black and white. अरे मांस नहीं खाना चाहिए, अरे मांस लिखा है, right? You take any aspect, violence, non-violence, eating meat, not eating meat, specifically from the Shastra's perspective only, there is no contradiction. There is a harmony between the two. There are stories where rishis have fed meat to their atithi. So therefore, one has to develop viveka. No, there has to be a Jnanottara Bhakti. Jnanottara Bhakti, you know, I would say from sentimental devotion to knowledge and from knowledge to bhava. You know, the sentimental devotion cannot be the part of bhava bhakti. It's Shruti Smriti Puranadi, you know, what is it? Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatrik Vidimina. Aikantika Harer Bhakti Utpate Vahi Kalpate. Right? Without the support of these Shastras, it will create a havoc. So therefore, Viveka has to be followed. When you follow Viveka, then Uttaradaitva becomes yours. The responsibility becomes yours. You can't make somebody else responsible. You can't make your guru responsible. You can't make devotees responsible. Sometimes you'll be neglected because you are not so interesting. You're not contributing so much. You're living your own world for whatever reason. So therefore, 1 or 2, 3, 4 times they may follow upon you. But then they stop following upon you because they have to do something else. Right? They have to raise funds, they have to do this, they have to do that. So you are basically irrelevant. After you being irrelevant, you want to be relevant, and then you complain, "Arey devotees ne mere ko phone nahi kiya, unhone aisa nahi kiya, waisa nahi kiya. You know, Guruji ne ye nahi kiya, wo nahi kiya." You know, it is not the responsibility to take the reins of your life in their hands. Parents भी थोड़े समय के लिए करते हैं. What to speak of others? It is not their responsibility. So therefore, Viveka Purnata is very important. Right. So this, I was listening to one talk by one Pakistani intellectual, very brilliant guy. I have quoted him before also, Muzzammil. He said, he gave an example that how the modern society is driven by visuals. It is against seeking knowledge. The public discourses don't happen. Impressing the public does happen. तो जब अगर ज्ञान को धारण नहीं करोगे, he said you become a mob. And once you become a mob, you make a statement, अरे इनके लिए हम जान देने के लिए तैयार हैं. कुछ भी करे हो, हमें आंखें बन के उनको मत करेंगे. He said very dangerous. You know, that doesn't allow you to grow because, you know, they shut you down, made you follow blindly. So therefore you have so much of emotions to say that जान भी दे देंगे, लेकिन इनको ये करेंगे. And I said critical thinking is very, very important. Knowledgeable thinking is very important. Right? And once that knowledge is there, then the philosophy makes sense. Philosophy's purpose is not philosophy. The philosophy's purpose is life reality. It is meant to be connected to the life. You know, for example, in the, I think, Yoga Vashishta, somebody was telling, I've not read it. Or that, for that matter, Shiva Tattva. Where does Shiva Tattva begin? It begins in the concept of non-existent. Very interesting. Somebody said me this Aristotle's idea. Then you'll get to know what is Advaita philosophy. Aristotle said there are 3 phases of time: past, present, and future. What is the nature of the past? Past existed, but now it does not exist. Therefore, it does not exist. Proposition is past existed, but now it does not exist. Therefore, it does not exist. That is about the past. About the future, he said, it will exist, but now it is not existing, therefore it will not exist. So what happened? The past and the future are non-existent. And what is the role of present? Present is so fast, so thin, right? 734 हो गया, 741 हो गया, देखते देखते 742 हो जाएगा, 741 निकल जाएगा. ये तो एक घड़ी की हो गई. Events in life, you are getting married, right? As if you are the king of the universe. Within no time, your kingship is gone. Back to normal life. While living a normal life, working hard, suddenly you get retired and you become irrelevant, redundant. So therefore, what he said, the past or the future doesn't exist, and the present is so temporary. So what is it? It is a non-existent. The way it was told non-existent, as if we are denying the creation. Not denying the creation, psychologically understanding, there is non-existent. So when you come to that level of philosophical understanding, there is no fear of doing things. तो नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट के साइकोलॉजी के कारण आप सबसे ज्यादा साहसी बन जाते हो. You do not fear results because you do not fear life itself. Because you do not fear life, then you are willing to take any kinds of jihadis, for example. They are given some idea about Jannat, so they're willing to blow off. Where does it come from? It comes from non-existent in this world. But then the philosophy in itself is not friendly to us. Because I am saying like this, non-existent gives rise to action. Somebody may say, देखो कितना कठोर जगत है, तो इसके पीछे पढ़ना ही क्यों? छोड़ दो ना. So general understanding is to give up swakarma. But Krishna gives so much of emphasis on performing swakarma, karma, then avatar coming and taking active responsibility. So what does it do? The philosophy, if it is not applied, keeping dharma in the center, then you'll misuse it. If you keep adharma in center, use this philosophy to murder somebody also and say, no, what is there to murder when you are non-existent? So non-existent philosophy of Advaita, when it is connected to dharma-centric idea, then what does it do? It gives rise to great confidence. It gives rise to great contribution. Because you're not taking the credit because you don't exist. That is Shiva Tattva. Right? Only in the platform of non-existent, you can actually contribute. Therefore, whether Krishna is speaking as Paramatma, he's speaking as Avatar, he's getting involved. What do you expect of the living entity? Understand the philosophy, apply the philosophy, keeping dharma in the center, and move forward. Therefore, kim akarmeti kavyapyatra mohita tatte karma pravakshami. One who understand this, one who understand the theory of karma properly, then he will achieve, Krishna. He will achieve the supreme perfection. What is that supreme perfection? Supreme perfection is that eternally liberated, even while being engaged in some tangible hard work. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
Anyone wishes to go ahead?
Yes. No questions. So we'll.
Um, recently this Jay Shettika thing happened. Na? You may be aware of it, right?
Yeah.
Increasingly in this world, people don't like to see someone affiliated to an organization, right? As an individualistic thought process or individual coming out is what seems to be appreciated. Is that right to say that? I mean, in line with what we are talking about, individual growth. Is it like that? Like, if people just represent themselves like an organization mouthpiece, then somehow they tend to land in some kind of trouble. Is that right in a larger way, or it's not?
See, in regards to, there is also this reality. Unless you are connected to, there is this Pakistani intellectual Muzammil. I will send that link. He gave a very powerful talk on intellectual and power center. He said power and knowledge, they go hand in hand. Hmm? So the power comes from the organization and knowledge comes from an individual. Therefore, he said, as an individual, he said, we can see how Pakistan is controlled by uneducated people, but they have the power and you have the intellect. Some few people. He said, not the whole mob doesn't have any intellect. Mob has a power. So even though he may not be connected to organization, he built his own organization, the educational platform. Right? He made some interesting courses, try to affiliate with certain universities where the certain universities also, disconnected that we ever gave him that permission. Right? So हाँ, ज्ञान के लिए खुद खोज करना है, ज्ञान का उपयोग करने के लिए आपको पावर सेंटर की आवश्यकता होती है. That was the specialty of the Vatican Church. Whatever knowledge they produced, there was a power to just disseminate the knowledge. तो पावर के लिए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चाहिए. इफ नॉट दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. इसलिए राज्य चाहिए, राष्ट्र चाहिए, ग्राम पंचायत चाहिए, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन चाहिए. एटलीस्ट यू नीड अ स्कूल. The kind of people you reach out as a professor in the college systematically, ongoing year after year, is much more powerful than one time big talk. दोनों भी चाहिए, दोनों भी चाहिए, because like somebody economics के बारे में कोई बता रहा था, पैसा तो किसी के हाथ में जाएगा ही. If you choose that I don't want money, doesn't stop there. When you decide I don't want any money, it doesn't stop there, because whatever it's supposed to come to you, it has to move somewhere else. So better, why not I have it so that I can use it for the right reason. Therefore, knowledge and power, and therefore, if you see the media house, why they do not have truth centric in India or all over the world for that matter, very clear. If you're left leaning or you're right wing, you're government friendly or government opposite. So because nobody wants knowledge, everybody wants narratives. इसके लिए प्रॉब्लम है. प्रॉब्लम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का नहीं है, प्रॉब्लम नरेटिव्स का है. So I would say we need, to grow, because the organization will never allow you to make a self-discovery. And a self-discovered person can never contribute his discovery without he has a system to support him. So तो ये जो हार्मनी है इन दोनों के बीच में, वो विवेकता हमें आना चाहिए.
Thanks, Prabhuji. Yeah, that was a very brilliant point. Yeah. Anyone else wishes to go?
Haji? Yes, we'll stop here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.